Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. This is your host, Greg Tompsett, joined by my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, are you still alive?
I am. I have hypertension, and this is not good for me. Not good at all. I lost years.
You want to know what it is today. A good time for?
Uncle Jumbo's?
That's right. This is the most Uncle Jumbo's game in the history of Uncle Jumbo's. Thank you to our sponsor, Uncle Jumbo's Distillery. I have never, ever needed a drink. Cheers, my brother. Thank you so much.
Holy cow, man.
UncleJumbosDistillery.com. There has never been a time that you needed them more in your life. Go and find them.
You need it for Bills games.
Some of this goodness over my head right there.
You definitely need it for...
Oh, what just happened? What did we just watch?
I'm going to try to pull him out. I'm not going to lie. I'm still shaking a little bit. The fan of me is just, I was fist boxing on that last night. I was just going nuts. I'm still a little shaky. This might be a weird show for you guys to just watch my emotions kind of unravel here. But what I will say is the Bills won a game they had no business winning today. That you give up a 25-point lead. You should not win that football game. So I'm not going to be mad about it. The style points, we talk about that all the time. Style points don't count, but they still won. Today they stole it.
Just like the Jumbos make heart medication. I'm gonna call the Castrius.
We're not doctors, but
and let them know they may need to look into that. Okay, let's step back for a second. The Buffalo Bills just won a game 35-32. That's a great thing. Josh Allen put up 5 total touchdowns. We'll get into that. They had a nice comeback win. That's never a bad thing. The fact that they needed to come back when they had a 28-3 lead, we're going to get into it with the defense today. This was the most disappointing defensive performance I've seen since I've been doing the show. I think this was worse than the Eagles game.
It's right up there with that Saints game maybe from McDermott a few years ago.
Right there with that Saints game of just demoralizing. I had no interest in them getting the ball back with any time left, that I had any confidence we were going to stop them at the end of that game. So stepping back a little bit, again, looking at this game, I know one of the things that you and I go to first is toxic differential, and it's a perfect match for this game. The Bills had all of it early on, and then big play after big play, turnover after turnover in the second half. We ended up having it at 7-6-ish?
So it's debatable, and there's some I want to kind of follow up with some geekier stat guys than me. I had it at 7-6. There was that 12-yard sack by Aaron Donald where some sites that track toxic plays would count that. Some don't. I mean, it's hard to get those types of plays toxic, so it could be 7-7, 7-6, and I think the score kind of reflects that. And it was something we talked about in the preview show, Greg. We talked about this was going to be a toxic game, and you saw the Bills run away with that early lead, and you look at the toxic differential, it all makes sense. And then as you saw that comeback, you saw the Rams really building up those. And they not only had the toxic differential plays, we talked about it here before we got on the game, they had a lot of 18, 19-yard plays that are right there to count as toxic differential. And that is how they've been able to win games, is getting those big plays. So crazy toxic differential game, just like we thought it would. And really, I think at the end of the day, the team that had the most ended up winning.
Yeah, and it was something where, again, we don't want to go overboard in only looking at the second half. There's going to be a lot of blame to go around of why this game was what it was, but we also need to make sure to recognize the fact that they earned a 28-3 lead and that they put up 35 points on a good team. They had not given up a lot of points so far. So being able to put up 35 points, we'll go through some of the plays, that really stood out. I'm excited to talk about Stephon Diggs putting it on Jalen Ramsey, but being able to go through that kind of setup, it really was unbelievable. We'll start early on and kind of go through as the game went on. Opening up with the first 3 and out of the year, I was a little bit nervous. Then to answer back with the Rams going on a 10-play, 53-yard drive that, we ended up getting that really timely sack from Matt Milano. It was that traditional bend but don't break situation where, hey, we're giving up plays but not letting them break big ones, and then the sack pushes him back. He misses a 52-yarder. You feel good, and then boom, the Bills answer back with a touchdown and you're feeling good. And then the next one I'll let you take because it's a guy that you spent a lot of time, being even, but defending this week and stood up with a huge interception early in the game.
Yeah. And first, I want to give a quick shout out to Andre Roberts. Even though they didn't score on that first drive, him coming out with that big return, that counted as a toxic differential play right out of the gate for him. And I think Bills fans need to really appreciate him because there was an argument, quite an aggressive argument this year about cutting him. And he's had a fantastic season. He didn't get much chances here today, but he's had a really, really good season. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. But yeah, Levi Wallace, man, comes up and he makes an aggressive play on the ball and gets the interception there. And that's not something we've seen from Levi Wallace, and not something somebody on Twitter was saying, hey, we're going to get a Levi Wallace interception this game. And I said, man, he's not that kind of guy, right? Like Levi.
Yeah, you were defending the technique and the positioning and the fact that
he's very difficult on quarterbacks that make you have to make the right throw. And that's what I think a lot of people said he got eaten up, but Fitz was dealing last week. And so even though he was in technique, he was in position, Fitz was making a better throw and guys were making better catches. But this week you saw him make an aggressive play. And I think that I love that from a player because Leslie Frazier taled about it in the media. Sean McDermott talked about it in the media. He responded. I love to see players respond.
He called them out in the way that Leslie Frazier does. Leslie Frazier is not a call out guy like a Rex Ryan or a Bruce Arians.
Right.
He just said, hey, we talked to Levi and told him he was doing a good job and sticking to his job. But until he steps up and makes a play, teams are going to continue to come at him and going to continue to throw at him. And that's just matter of fact truth. That's not, that's not any kind of call out or trying to make the guy feel bad. It's just saying, hey, unless you force them to stop, Trey White's on the other side of this field. They're going to keep coming at you. So really happy for him to be able to do that. And, then they answer right back. They get that ball. They come right down the field and you see another touchdown. All of a sudden.
That one was nice because it had the 3 QB runs.
Yes. 3 straight quarterback runs. 3 straight quarterback runs. And
which everyone hates on Twitter, but it worked.
Yeah. And it just really proves how results oriented that complaining was. No one really cared about, and I said it over and over again after that game. No one has a called quarterback run problem. Everyone has a fumbling problem. That's okay. It's okay not to like fumbles. Josh Allen almost took years off my life at the end of that game, the way that he carries the ball. But no one has any problem with called quarterback runs. People have problems with fumbles, and that's okay to have problems with.
And Josh Allen's fumbling problem isn't a running problem, right? Like he is loose with the ball, in the pocket or wherever he is. And I agree, but I think it also just really hits home that the weapon, when you weaponize Josh Allen, especially in the red zone, it's where he's had his biggest rushing success has been in the red zone. And he really is a real weapon there. And yes, they're not going to use it every week like they did that first week, but they're going to use it and they're going to pick their spots. And that was a great spot to do it because the Rams really couldn't do anything. They just moved it 3 plays in a row right in and got in the end zone. Josh, that was nice. We haven't seen a lot of the option play design from Brian Daboll. I thought that underrated storyline of this game is going to be, I think, at least in the first half, and I think he called the fine second half. There was just an execution problem. Brian Daboll was right there toe-to-toe with Sean McVay of calling a game, and that's very impressive. And I think Bills fans have to start getting ready for him to not be part of this organization in a year because it was another good offensive performance from this team overall.
And then we go right in, they end the half. We have another, they did give up a field goal to the Rams and they score again, coming back down the field. The TJ Yeldon drive there in the 2-minute drill. They had multiple runs and a nice catch to him. And you see Tyler Kroft get on the board. So now you have both a Tyler Kroft and a Lee Smith touchdown in the first half. Rams can't do much of anything at the end of the half. And it's 21-3. Everybody's feeling good. And even in the third quarter, I got caught up in the fact of, hey, I think we're over it. We shut them down, got them to go on a 4th down, got a great stop, and then answered back with another touchdown, coming right back at it. And this was the one I talked about earlier where Stephon Diggs scores on Jalen Ramsey, and that's it 28-3 with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. That is just a point in the game where that needs to be over right then and there.
Yeah, and right there, I would like to apologize to all of Bills Mafia because I got super cocky and I made a GIF of Jalen Ramsey's face and Josh Allen throwing him out in the trash, and I tagged Jalen in it, and I was feeling good. I had people texting me like, "This Bills team's legit," and it just all kind of fell apart. from that point on. So I'm going to take personal responsibility because I got too cocky, and that's why the Bills dropped the 25-point lead. So you can bring it into my mentions. It's my fault.
Oh, and from then on, we won't go through drive by drive, but it just started to slowly slip away. You saw the Rams answer with a touchdown. It was while everybody was in the glow of the 28-3. Nobody even really noticed. Then all of a sudden, you see the deep pass, which Josh shouldn't have thrown. It was a bad decision. Tyler Kroft tried to go up and save him, had a offensive pass interference to even get the cornerback off, went up, got the ball, came down with it. Somehow, after he came down and was contacted, the Rams guy, I didn't even think really wrestled it away from him, but maybe got shared possession. And somehow that became an interception. It was one of the weirder calls that I've seen where I couldn't find anyone who thought it was an interception. Everyone was against it. Mike Pereira talked about it. Everyone online didn't understand it. And for them to come back and uphold that, and during the game, you don't see the NFL answer back this quickly. During the game, NFL officiating tweeted out an explanation saying that they didn't think that Tyler Kroft maintained possession through the ground and never actually caught the ball. And just, you can tell the backlash is bad when they answer back during the game. I don't know that I've ever seen that quickly of a attempted response.
Even if he doesn't catch the ball, though, my understanding of the rule would still be tie goes to the offense, or it's an incomplete pass. Like he did possess the ball first. I don't know. Maybe I don't know the rules. I don't know what's a catch. Nobody knows what's a catch.
My whole life.
Either way, terrible call. I don't think the NFL is going to be able to explain this. But Josh can't do that. He can't make that throw. We talked about, though, he's going to have those plays in almost every game. He'll have a throw that just drives you nuts. He'll have a scramble where the ball's loosey-goosey that just drives you nuts. This one just unfortunately was called poorly, but then it also really ended up being a huge pivotal turning point in the game in favor of the Rams. And I don't ever want to hear from anybody about momentum anymore. Right. That it's not a real thing.
The most blatant example ever.
It just is totally real. And if you deny it, you're just denying it for the sake to start an argument.
Well, and so right then they answer back again, 3 plays with a touchdown, and it's immediately 28-17, and now it's a game. The Bills get the ball back and go with quick 3 and out, incomplete passes, a short play left, and this is where it really started to unravel. This is where Aaron Donald started to show himself. He didn't have the sack, but he collapsed the pocket. Leonard Floyd got the sack. Quick 3 and out, punt it back, another touchdown on a 10-play, 97-yard drive. I'm going to give a quick shout-out. Corey Bajorkas had a 72-yard punt that was, in the moment, felt very pivotal, that I felt like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what this team needed. We're reeling. We need to get them down at the 3-yard line, really hold it. So he had 2 punts for 116 yards, both of them inside the 20. So the 72-yarder was great, but he had another one that was a 44-yarder that was down at the 13-yard line. Probably his best game as a Bill.
That's kind of the path for Bojo is less punts.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you nailed it, though, when you talked about he's not that bad. It's the inconsistency, right? When he punts 3-4 times in a game and he has that one shank, it really just kills his numbers. If we're only using him a few times and he can really nail in that one drive was just unbelievable. And I agree with you that should have been the type of play that stops momentum.
They needed it to be. The defense needed that to be the shot in the arm to really hold. And, they had them. There were, let me count, 1, 2, 3 third down conversions on that drive, including a 3rd and 11 and a 3rd and 8, that you just can't let that up. You cannot let up those kind of conversions. And that for years, we've been the defense that didn't allow that. And that we've never been dominant in the old Ravens or the old, Steelers versions of those defenses. We were always just the best versions of the bend but don't break, like the Tampa 2 defenses when they had Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp, where you can move up and down the field, but you can't score. And we would get turnovers or get sacks in big moments. And to have them come back with that 10-play, 97-yard drive, it just was really disheartening. And then you come back with another Aaron Donald play. And, for anyone who thought we were going to control him or be able to do that, he's the best player in football. And the play that he ragdolled Josh Allen with one arm. Josh Allen's one of the most powerful athletes in the NFL. He is 6'5", 260, and does stuff all the time that is unbelievable. And Aaron Donald threw him down with one hand and knocked the ball out of his hand. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and that play was, I don't want to get anyone in trouble here, but Josh Allen's his head hit the ground very hard, and they should have probably pulled him. Just the way he came up holding his head. Normally the NFL would pull a guy for at least the play. So glad they didn't do that, but I was terrified for Josh Allen when I saw him go to the ground like that. That man is an animal. He is a monster, and I don't want him anywhere near my sweet, precious Josh, because that doesn't end well for the Buffalo Bills. Even on one of those QB keepers options, I know people don't like running. I don't like running when Aaron Donald goes unblocked and has his way to just chomp down. And you could tell the frustration of Aaron Donald on that play when he hit Josh Allen. He was like, enough's enough, man. He was mad. So he came at that second half. He was mad. I did think they did a pretty good job of neutralizing him in the first half. They ran kind of right at him a few times, and they used his aggressiveness against him in the run game a few times, where he would get upfield too quick, and patience by Singletary allowed him to kind of find that hole. And then the second,
they basically in the second half, they basically moved him to defensive end. So they moved him outside the tackle and let him loop inside, because when he was lining up inside, Winters and Ford aren't going to block him, but they could absorb a little bit, and Morris could come over and help. And now when you send him to the outside and he was looping in, and it was hard to be able to tell where he was coming from, it really made it tough to be able to figure out what to do. The Rams,
he was the most dominant player on the field for the entire second half.
Oh, easily. The Rams get the ball back there. Obviously, it was only at 37-yard line. Plus, Josh didn't understand the rule. So just to clarify for anybody who's listening, Josh Allen did get horse collared. He got pulled, from the front of the shoulder pads, pulled down. Unfortunately, that's not a penalty in the pocket. It's one of the few things where when you're reaching up, if they don't want guys hitting the helmet of the quarterback, they want you grabbing and pulling down. They want you going from shoulder pads to thighs. They don't want you hitting low. It's not a penalty. So Josh didn't understand that. He did get horse collared, so he didn't understand. You got to have the presence of mind in the moment not to get in the ref's face and give up an extra 15 yards when the team's reeling. So then all of a sudden the Rams only need 37 yards. Again, go right down the field, can't get a stop. And at that point, when the Rams take the lead back, plus a 2-point conversion to go up 32-28, it was all those emotions rushing back at me from the past 20 years. It was all of those feelings of, oh my God, I can't believe it. I bought into this team again, and they're going to kill me. I can't believe it. I talked myself into this team being above this and good enough not to do it. And all of those emotions just came rushing over me in telling myself, they're going to do it again. They're going to break my heart again. I totally bought in, and I made myself vulnerable, and they're going to rip my heart out in front of everybody. And I'm going to have to deal with, I live in a neighborhood of rabid football fans who all cautiously, poke fun, like, oh, hey, the Bills finally have a real game this week. We'll see if they're real. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to walk outside and deal with the fact that they just had a Falcons 28-3 meltdown. And I challenge anyone who was watching that game with me to say they didn't feel the same.
No, everybody felt the same, because we've been beaten down for 20 years of those types of results. There's a word for it. It's Billsy. Yeah. It was feeling very Billsy in the end of that game. And my concern was then you're going to see all week long. You heard Eric and I talked offline a little bit about this and saying, I hope Josh plays well, because anytime you start to hear the rumblings of the media in early September, where the Bills come out a little bit hot, we've seen it probably 15 out of the 20 years. The Bills come out pretty good and look all right in September. And then you can hear a couple of guys in the media saying, hey, this is a different team. This is a good team. And they never live up to any sort of media hype. They always drop the ball a week after that. And so I think Bills fans we are just prone to seeing that. And then you see a game like this gives you all the reason to have those feelings you had, man. I was right there with you. Like, my kid's bugging me to find one of his toys, and I'm like, not right now. Like, get away from me. I can't deal with this right. I can't deal with anything. The Bills are about to drop this. I'm going to have to deal with this all week long in the media, that it's the same old Bills and all this stuff. And fortunately for us, Josh's clutch gene or whatever he has changed the narrative for this week. But this could have been a really long week for Bills fans to have to deal with blowing that's the narrative all week long, that you blow a 25-point lead, and it's that same Pat score. It's that everything that you just have to deal with.
It's
all
the lead
week
on every
long.
show.
Yeah.
So fortunately for Buffalo, we will now insert our West Herd drive of the game. And it was the game-winning 11-play, 75-yard touchdown drive, 4 minutes and 15 seconds when there are only 4 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game. They come down the field, open it up with a great play to Cole Beasley to get the ball rolling 18 yards. And we'll get to it here in a bit. Cole Beasley had a huge game today.
Yeah.
The next one was the crazy play of Josh breaking free, fighting off a sack, rolling out to the left, trying to get himself free, move the ball to his left hand, then back to his right hand and kind of shuffle past it. And it looked like a really fortunate incomplete call. And then they rightfully overturned it to be the sack that it was, which set up 2nd and 22, then an incompletion, and it's 3rd and 22. And at that point, I'm going to go find it after the game here. I want to find the win probability chart of when the Rams are up by 4 and it's 3rd and 22. What was the win probability at that point? And to have him again hit Cole Beasley for 22.25 yards, and Beasley to just get across that line, first down. Nice little play to McKenzie. Got back to some running with Singletary. Another 19-yard pass to Beasley to get him down there. And then we saw a little bit more craziness again, and they came after Josh, and he somehow face masked a defensive player.
I think it's the first offensive face mask I can remember seeing.
It was the right call.
It was the right call for sure.
He held onto his face mask
and threw him to the ground.
Yeah, for 5 seconds, and would not have gotten away from the sack if he didn't face mask him. It's the exact reason that you do that. But then all of a sudden, now you're talking 2nd and 25 from the 30. Again, with an incompletion, we're now at 3rd and 25 again. Again, I want to go back and find the win probability
right here.
chart.
Cole Wilkinson says 83.9 win percent for the Rams. I don't know if that's accurate, but I'm going to take his word for it.
We're going to trust Cole.
It sounds good.
Cole's listening to our show. He's obviously very smart.
Yeah.
So then you hit a really big play to Stephon Diggs, which, in case we'll see it when we get the all 22, that safety was going to break on the ball and pick it off. When he went to push off, his foot slipped, and it gave Diggs just enough time to catch it and to go down. So then all of a sudden, you're sitting there, and it's 4th and 8. Really smart timeout by the Bills there. Collect your thoughts, be able to get everything together. I thought that they managed timeouts really well down the stretch. The Rams probably had a couple they would have liked to have had back from that standpoint. They then get a pretty favorable pass interference call. It wasn't egregious. I think Mike Pereira came on and explained why it was illegal contact. He said he would have done illegal contact, not the pass interference, which would have been a 5-yard penalty, still a first down. So whether it was 1st and goal at
not a spot down
goal at the 3, it still would have been right there within the 10. But certainly, I put up the GIF right after that of the Dumb and Dumber of just when I thought you couldn't get any dumber, you go and completely redeem yourselves.
It's true.
And then the final play, rolling out, high lofted pass, had both Stephon Gilmore and Tyler Kroft rolling out there. Kroft full extension, grabs the ball, comes down with the touchdown. And it was an indescribable feeling of just relief and elation. And to have them come back and to be able to win that game is just something I can't remember experiencing.
Yeah, I wasn't going to pick that drive at halftime. I had a drive picked out. It was when they went up 21-3. It was an 8-play drive, 75 yards. It was beautiful. It was perfectly executed. It was the kind of drive I wanted to get on here.
Probably the better drive, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. And it was the drive I wanted to talk about after a big blowout victory for the Bills that we're celebrating. But no, this has to be the drive of the game, absolutely. And hopefully it's the only really ugly drive that we have to have as the drive of the game, because it was not pretty. We got a little help, I think. I agree. It was a pass or a illegal contact either way, but I don't know if you get the 5-yard penalty versus getting the spot foul, if that changes the outcome of the game, because the spot foul is a huge deal down in the red zone like that. So definitely got a little bit back from that interception. The universe has a way of correcting itself, a little karma, and restores a little balance to the world.
That was a legit penalty.
Yes.
I'm personally I don't believe that you call every foul the same at every point in the game. That there are times, especially in basketball, I'm big on that. Like, hey, sometimes you got to let the players play. At that point, if that was called against the Bills, I would have been livid.
Yeah, Rams fans should be, totally mad. The players should be mad. It was ticky tacky for sure. That's a call you call in the first quarter.
It was the right call. You should not call that. Literally, when the game would have ended.
Yeah, not in that spot. But I'll take it because wins are wins, and it doesn't matter. They don't take points away for ticky tacky calls at the end of games. But yeah, no, I mean, my youngest was taking his nap at that point, and I jumped out, like my body just came out of me, and I jump off the couch on the craft, and I'm just trying to hold it in without screaming. I almost had to run outside and just let out a scream. And I think all Bills Mafia is with me right there, because you don't expect that to be the outcome of the way that whole second half went, and just the 20 years of just punishment and beatings that this team has put us through. You just expect everything to go wrong at the end, even when it's right there and it's close. And we've seen a couple of those games now from Josh Allen. We've got people in the comments about I hate to say it because I don't know that it's a real thing, but he has that clutch gene. Like, it's there. Like, he is not shaken at the end of games. He made a couple close to bonehead decisions.
Sure.
And so sort of towards the end of the game, but when it really mattered the most, he made the plays he needed to make.
Well, and you talk about it's never in anything other than just incredible competitiveness. Like, that's the reason that he's doing that. It's because he's trying to get make a play. He's trying to do those things. And obviously the win is right with your mustache, putting it
I'm
right there.
I'm keeping it now, baby. My poor wife.
It's something where, we'll go into it, and I think that this is the right time to look, for what Josh did, because I think he has to be the player spotlight for today, and being able to look at anybody else. He was the core of this game for the good and the bad. Let's start with the overall numbers. 24 of 33 for 311 yards and 4 touchdowns. Did have the 1 interception, which no one can make me acknowledge that wasn't an interception. Had 4 rushes for 8 yards and another touchdown. So a 5-touchdown game from Josh. Did have a lost fumble that was not on him. When you're getting ragdolled to the ground by Aaron Donald, that's holding onto the ball is not your number one priority in that moment. But 300, his third straight 311-yard game, his third straight game at above 68% completion percentage. This was actually his best at 72.7% completion percentage. And anything that he did that would frustrate fans, which he did plenty to frustrate fans, is always from a sense of incredible competitiveness, trying to make a play. One that fans were mad about, I actually liked. I've read a few things from an analytics standpoint that said one of the untapped elements of the game that we may see in the next 10 or 15 years is more laterals within the play. And on that play where he was running and he saw Isaiah McKenzie, and if anybody goes back and look, there wasn't a whole lot there in front of McKenzie, and he threw it too hard. But if he was able to more option pitch the ball to McKenzie, I think McKenzie might have scored on that play. And I like the idea that he had. It looks crazy, and it gets chalked up as, oh, there goes boneheaded Josh trying to make a play.
No.
I actually like that one.
Yeah, I said it in the Slack channel. I loved actually that, because the worst case scenario is it's out of bounds.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, fine, out of bounds. But really, I think that was a little bit on Isaiah. He's got to keep his eyes on Josh and move with him, because Josh made that pump fake. He kind of said, like, hey, I might come to you with the ball, and then he just didn't keep moving down the field. But out of all people on the team, I think you get that in Isaiah's hands. He has that type of explosiveness to go from 0 to just 10 yards fast. Even if he doesn't end in a touchdown, that's still a positive play. So
not a bad call by circling the wagons. If McKenzie scores there, it would have been too much time on the clock for the Rams. That's a great call.
Yeah, it would have. But I agree. But at the same time, you're just trying to get. You don't know that you're going to score later on. You're just trying to score. But I think that will get probably picked on by the PFFers and the people that are going to look for things that Josh did poorly. That will be one you see this week. But you can tag me in that, and I will come running to Josh's defense because I don't think that's a bad one at all. There are a few bad ones that those PFFers and the people are going to have to pick at Josh.
Well, he gave some ammo today.
He gave some ammo today. He gave us some ammo to defend him still at the end of the day. So it's going to be a long week for the Twitter battlers out there, but that play is not one of them.
Yeah. So, stepping back in, I know when we talked about it pregame, really nice game from Devin Singletary. 13 carries for 71 yards and was consistently making guys miss. Another 4 catches for 50 yards, so 121 scrimmage yards for Devin Singletary. TJ Yeldon in very light work looked nice. They gave him that one drive at the end of the first half where they scored a touchdown, and he contributed with 3 positive plays. I thought the running game looked fine. So it's hard because I'm very big on not getting conservative, staying aggressive, wanting to keep that going. So I'm glad they didn't go conservative run style in the second half. But in hindsight, maybe I wish there was a little bit more of that in a couple of those 3-and-out drives that we would have tried to establish a little bit more. If anything, I think this shows Brian Daboll sees this as a passing team. We are a passing team. This was I think the most skewed that we had from a run pass differential, 33-21. This is a pretty heavy one towards the pass. And
some of that is at the end having to play to catch up at the end of the game. You had to pass. But I think we talk about it all the time. I think they're going to lean that way a little bit more this year. And I'm comfortable. I know people want to see Devin Singletary get his 20 touches, but I'm comfortable in that 12 to 15 touch area for Devin Singletary. And I think that he was super productive with those touches today. And that doesn't count as his catches, right? I'm just talking about his runs. They still got him the ball out of the backfield 4 times for 50 yards and 12.5 per catch. I mean, he does nice things that way too. So I like the production and I see it getting better every single week so far, no matter who the running back is. I saw Zach Moss having some improvement a week ago. You saw TJ Yeldon come in and very limited touches, do fine. He came in on one drive and moved the ball, got a first down. So I see that improving. And that's really, I think Sean McDermott and both Brian Daboll believe that's the type of thing that you really need to have well oiled and going late in the season, right? When you're getting into playoff football and some of these bigger games later in the year, you really need to make sure that's running well. But I like what I'm seeing out of the running game in limited amounts so far.
Yeah, and it's something that I hope we find games where we can mix a little more of that in there and be able to, have some games where it really makes sense and they can take advantage of it. But again, they're doing what they're good at, and Josh Allen is being good, passing the ball. And today was, I think, one of the most encouraging from a depth of the receiving core standpoint. For anybody who's not aware, John Brown went out early with a calf injury. Obviously, we're hoping that's not too serious. So he did not return to the game after, I think, the first drive. You saw Gabe Davis step up with a nice game, 4 for 81. This was Cole Beasley's best game as a Buffalo Bill. 6 catches for 100 yards. Several clutch plays, 3 of them on that huge drive at the end. Didn't get into the end zone, but was the reason that we scored on 2 of those drives. Stephon Diggs with a really good 4 for 49 and a touchdown, considering he had 2 other touchdowns that got called back to be able to finally get there and have one count. And then 3 touchdowns from the tight ends, and Tyler Kroft and Lee Smith having 5 catches for 25 yards and 3 touchdowns did their job. Caught the targets that were thrown to them. And the one that technically didn't count is because they didn't give Tyler Kroft credit for the catch that he actually had that got overturned.
I will say too, I liked the blocking I saw out of Tyler Kroft today too. He did a great job setting
one
the
great
edge.
Singletary run.
That Singletary run, he set the edge a number of times. He did for the one of the McKenzie jet sweeps. He came around, set the edge really nice. So I liked what I saw out of Tyler Kroft, and that's a really good thing because we hadn't seen him really much healthy a year ago.
You don't know what concussions are going to do with Knox.
No, he could be out a while. We've seen it happen to players before, where even if looks like a minor one, it just keeps him out. They just don't get going. But even if Knox comes back, I know fans are excited about him. I'm excited about the possibility of what I think Knox can be also. But there is huge consistency issues with Dawson Knox, and they're not going to let that go too long. If Kroft can show he can be a consistent person in both the blocking and catching part of being a tight end, they're going to roll with a guy that's able to produce when called upon. So Knox has to get back, and then he has to also show that he's consistent. But obviously the athleticism's there. you want to get excited for this guy. He has that potential to do it, but I don't know that he's arrived at any point yet.
Yeah, Taylor DeGeorge with a great update. So the one touchdown we talked about was Stephon Diggs getting it on Ramsey, where it was actually pretty decent coverage. Other one, Lee Smith was Jalen Ramsey's man on the Lee Smith touchdown, and he thought
Josh looked him off.
He thought he caught Josh looking and was going to go for the interception. Josh came back to Lee Smith for the touchdown, so love to see that one.
Yeah.
Now shifting over, it is time for some people to take their medicine.
I'm almost out of Uncle Jumbo's.
Yeah, seriously. This defense today, there was a couple moments of pressure. I thought Vernon Butler flashed a couple times. AJ Epinesa chased him down for his one career sack. Matt Milano had one of the only legitimately good defensive plays of the game where he had that sack on third down that knocked them further into a longer field goal and was the reason that they missed. That field goal would have been good from 44. Levi Wallace had the interception, and that's about it. There just was nothing good the entire game.
There was some good, right? I thought I saw Milano flashed a number of times in the screen game early on. I thought they did a good job there. Taron Johnson also had a number of flash plays in the screen game.
The most frustrating player of the game, in that anytime he was coming forward, it was awesome. Right. Stuffing in the run, sniffing out screens. Anytime he was in coverage, it was terrible. And he got worked by both Robert Woods and Higbee and Cooper Kupp. And that I'm officially nervous about our nickel cornerback coverage.
It's hard. I hate to sound like Sean McDermott. I want to take a look at the tape because I do think it was part lack of pass rush.
Yeah. Yes,
a number of the plays. It's hard. There was one specifically to Kupp that stood out where probably had 4 seconds back there in a clean pocket, and that's just you're not going to guard Cooper. I don't know many. Even Trey White's going to struggle to keep his hands and guard Kupp for 4 seconds. So there's a number of stuff baked in. I'm not necessarily nervous yet. I think it ended up being just both defensive line and DBs. You can never get both of them really lined up in the second half, where even the plays we did get pressure, somebody gave up coverage. So they just didn't have any opportunities. I think for me, the most frustrating part is seeing the run game, because that's really what set this run up for the Rams. I saw them still running when they were down big, and I was like, what is
32 carries for 167 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I was like, what's Sean McVay doing here, man? They're down big and he's still running, but that set up so much later on in the game, and the Bills were just playing. They didn't know what was coming their way because they play everything off the play actions built off the run, and you don't always have to establish the run to get the play action going. I know the analytical people will tell you that, but that is what Sean McVay did. Even when they were down, he was still establishing that run, and that's for me been the most frustrating thing about these Sean McDermott defenses is the gap integrity. And you saw, again, we'll have to look at the tape. You saw Tremaine Edmonds, who I love, a number of times just over pursuing some plays and just getting kind of lost and getting, stuck on blocks and things like that. So I want to take a look really at Tremaine Edmonds and even Matt Milano in the run game in the second half a little bit, because I felt like there was a number of times where both of them were over pursuing, but we won't know until we see the tape. But the defensive line didn't get the pressure we needed. A lot of things kind of baked into that second half. And also Sean McVay is super good at what he does.
Well, if I asked you to bet a large sum of money right now, are you 100% certain Jerry Hughes played today?
I mean, I saw him a number of times, but yeah, no, he definitely. I mean, the pressure wasn't there. My boy Trent didn't get much pressure.
I think Ed Oliver's least impactful game. I think I counted once that I saw him make a play that I noticed.
Yeah.
Harrison Phillips' worst game that I've seen so far on the
he
one
got moved
game.
Off the ball a ton.
I started to watch him in the one drive. Every single snap, you saw his helmet come back and him go back a yard. And that if you're that run stuffing defensive tackle, for all the crap people give Star Lotulelei, he was great at holding the point, taking up space, and getting a step into the backfield. He didn't do much more than that. He didn't do a lot more than that, but you did not move him off the ball. Harrison Phillips was getting moved off the ball over and over again. And that one drive, they ran Darrell Henderson to Harrison Phillips' spot 3 straight plays. Yeah, and it was terrible.
Yeah. And something, I mean, that's been a concern of some of the undersized interior linemen that the Bills have, and their historical inability to really stop the run.
A crazy out of the box idea. I don't know if that it's insane to bring in Snacks Harrison for a workout. Like, I don't know that that's actually like I give people a hard time about some of the Madden additions people make. Oh, we should always trade for this guy or sign that guy. I don't know that it's crazy that maybe we should bring Damon Harrison in for a workout.
I think maybe give it a little bit. Rams are very good, and they've really done a good job at establishing a good run game this year that's kind of gone not talked about because all the flashy plays are in the pass game, but they've really established themselves on the ground, and we're lucky we didn't see Cam Akers today additionally too. And that's probably something that opens up the game a lot more for them, but they have a nice stable of running backs, and they really stayed with it and attacked the Bills, and it's been the Achilles heel of this Bills defense. I don't know that any one player coming in changes some of the stuff and the problems that they have with it, but normally, you alluded to it earlier, normally this defense is so good at coming up with a play and doing the bend but don't break, but they were just able to keep at that and then mix in some of the play action. Robert Woods on those jet sweeps just had them pursuing. I know people got frustrated with that one play, like Trey's got to tackle that guy, man. Yeah. Out in space with Robert Woods, I don't care who you are, he wins that matchup 9 out of 10 times. Like, that is what he does. He's good in open field. He's been good at that since USC days. So Sean McVay is very smart at how he gets players the ball and where he gets them the ball. And that just, I think McDermott and Dable very much had the upper hand in the first half. I think Sean McVay came back in that second half and took the upper hand in play calling against both Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier in that second half, and they just couldn't make the adjustments and get the players to execute at a high level and blew a 25-point lead. I just want to vomit every time I say it.
It's so, I mean, I'm as big of a Sean McDermott apologist as exists. I've said multiple times, I think he is the single most valuable asset in the entire Pagula portfolio. He's the reason that they've turned this franchise around. He's the reason they've built the culture. He's the reason that they now have the right kind of players wanting to re-sign. I think he's a huge part of Trey White wanting to stay with this organization. All that said, the third quarter thing is a thing. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know. You know, you and I have been pretty adamant that we've seen more execution than play calling issues. I've pointed out multiple times how they stay aggressive with passing. They don't go conservative run pass kind of, BS. It's still a thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know what they need to do, what he needs to shake up, if it's needing to change up the halftime thing, even if symbolically, just to show the team that, hey, we're doing something different, guys. Whatever we're doing isn't working. We need to change it up here. Let's shake it up. Let's try this. Whatever that is, I don't get what it is, but we cannot go on the run that I think this team's capable of if they're going to consistently get out adjusted every halftime and have the other team execute better, play better, whatever it might be. They cannot continue to lose the third quarter. Today's obviously a dramatic example. They haven't all been like this, but they've been sluggish every third quarter this year, and that was a trend going back to last year.
Well, I did feel like they were about to buck the trend. They came out in the third quarter. They got the huge 4th and 4 stop right out, which I thought, I know it's the right analytical call for McVay to go for it there, but I was like, man, the way the defense was playing, I wouldn't make that call. And then they come down, Diggs gets that, and they go up 28-3. So I thought at that point, I'm like, okay, we've kind of overcome that stigma and that it's not real, right? Like, they executed, and all we needed them to do. Yeah, all we need him to do is execute. So I don't even know if it's coming out sluggish. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it, but you're right. There's a thing behind it. There's something going behind it where third quarter is just a terrible time to be a Bills fan, no matter what the score is. Apparently, even if it's 28-3, doesn't matter because they blew that up. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be some tough film grinding for our boy Eric to check out that third quarter and kind of what went down. But I think we're going to get some honest answers, and I think there's going to be some really tough. We talk about this a lot on the show. There's going to be a lot of tough film to watch with Sean McDermott this week. If you're a Buffalo Bills player, it's not going to be pretty to sit there in the film room even after a W.
I got to give you some credit here because I think you did this. But for anyone who isn't following Eric J. Turner on Twitter, Aaron has been encouraging him to do more of the little mini Brian Baldinger kind of breakdowns as we go. I don't know that either of us anticipated him taking that into literally real-time film breakdown. Eric went nuts today.
Yeah.
Eric, go back and look at his feed. Follow him for sure. He was literally breaking down the plays as they were happening. He had to have done like 20 plays today, where right as they were happening, like talking over top of it, showing it in slow motion on the game, going through the. You guys have to be following Eric. It was unbelievable. It was one of my favorite things I've seen.
I'll take full. I try to stay off Twitter. I came in for the Ramsey gif just to rile everybody up and to also say I was right about toxic differential. I always will find an opportunity to come back to say I was right about a thing. But I'll take credit for it, man. I feel like I have a very good ability to turn on Eric's monster. I just get him going and just, so I'll take full credit for that.
Oh yeah, no. For anyway, what Eric, Aaron, and I's private chat is probably the thing that I read the most anywhere, any day. Like we talk back and forth a weird amount every single day. And Aaron was pushing him to do that and thought that it would turn out well. And Eric took it times 100.
Yeah.
And did it real time. Did it real time during the game of every single play.
I saw some where he puts it in. This is a great thing for Slack. I did see some in the Slack channel that he was putting in there real time, talking about it when we were seeing big plays. So shout out to he's the hardest working guy in all of Bill's content.
It's crazy.
I don't even think it's close.
So going to a couple questions here before we wrap up. Daniel Garris, thank you. Daniel is always in here for us, telling people to hit the like button, chat, and everything. Thank you so much, Daniel. Why did Quinton Spain get benched? So Eric was very surprised by that early on. I don't know that this move was something that we favored. All of us kind of agreed that in preparation for Feliciano coming back and in a game with Aaron Donald, they maybe thought Cody Ford's power would match up better with Aaron Donald, and that was a chance to do that. I actually thought Brian Winters played pretty well in the first half and pretty poorly in the second half. And I'm curious to see what it is. I will say, whatever the combination is between Spain, Feliciano, Ford, and Winters, we need Feliciano back more than I thought. And maybe there's something we don't know about, and that Spain was injured and it didn't come out in the news. But whatever they did today, I don't think anyone was going to look good against Aaron Donald. Cody Ford and Brian Winters also didn't look good. I don't think Quinton Spain was going to be the answer. Aaron Donald is the best player in the NFL and looked like it several times today. But I think they were just trying to make a move to offset it as much as they could.
Yeah, it's going to be something to keep an eye on for sure. It surprised me.
Good call.
And I agree with Eric that I wasn't particularly happy about it. And I'm not going to be, have not been one of these people that wanted Brian Winters off the team or think he's total trash. I think that's a bit over the top. I think he's established himself as a good NFL player for long enough that he's not trash and deserves a spot on this team. But I was definitely surprised, especially with the type of human being we were playing. And you're right though, man. I think if the first half continued, nobody's second guessing anything.
Would look great
about that. It looks like
Aaron Donald did nothing in the first half.
Yeah, it looks like a great call, but obviously Aaron Donald has a big second half. So you start to wonder. I don't know. I'm sure we'll get questions about it here, and I'm sure Brian Dable will be asked about that here this week, and McDermott as well.
So, do you think the defense playing poorly in all three games this season is something to be worried about? In a word, yes. Yeah, I don't know how you could possibly feel any differently. It's something that this was the hallmark of this team for a long time. I don't think it's to the point where you need to assume they can't turn it around. The Rams are a good offense. The Rams are going to put up points on a lot of teams. Today was unacceptable, and today is not a championship caliber defense. We need to see more than that. So is there reason to be worried? Yes.
Maybe a little bit. I think it's unfair to the 3 games is tough because that first game they lost both Milano and Edmonds.
And were dominant before they went out. I was joking about the Jets might not get a first down.
Correct. They were dominating that game. They go out. And let's keep in mind, Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano are not 100% healthy going into this game. This was not their... Someone
commented that Edmonds went out at the end of the game.
Yeah, I didn't notice, but it's something I definitely am itching to get on Twitter and check out what's going on there. Taron Johnson also not totally healthy going into this game here. But if you're going to have a stretch of bad games defensively, I guess this is the time to get over that. I think we've seen enough tape from this defense as a collective unit to know that what they can do. So I'm not worried yet. a few more performances like this, if this starts to trickle into mid-October and they're playing poorly, I start to get worried. But Sean McDermott says all the time, you don't know who your team is until you reach November football. Yeah. So it's fun to pile up wins while you're trying to figure that out.
And how about the fact we're 3-0 while we're complaining about the defense?
Yes, and there's time to correct it, and I have full faith in the people that have their jobs to do that, to correct it. So I think you want to get Edmonds and Milano a little bit more healthy here coming up, and hopefully the injury bug doesn't hit that side of the ball and they can correct it. But yeah, I think maybe it's going to be time to start worrying about it soon, but I'm not worried yet. I think there was enough good plays, and the guys on the other side of the field get paid to play, and Sean McVay's no joke. So if any team was going to come back like that, I think there's like probably 4 or 5 teams that I think can put up points the way the Rams did in the second half and come back from a deficit like that. So, and the Rams are one of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, a couple of people did confirm AJ Klein was in for Tremaine Edmonds on the last play of the game. We don't know what that was or what was involved in it, but obviously we'll find out more as we're going here.
Right.
And a couple of people brought up some questions here about the what have you done for me lately, and there was a good question as well about some of the defenses last year that you can't deny there was a stretch there where the Bills played Eli Manning in his last game, Darnold in his last game, Mariota instead of Tannehill, Duck Hodges instead of Roethlisberger. So you can't help. Like, that's not the Bills' fault. So they can't help who's on their schedule and that they play the team that's coming up there. But yes, did that maybe give us a little bit of false hope that maybe they weren't the second best defense in the NFL and were just pretty good and also played a really favorable schedule? It's possible. I don't think it's that simple. And in the NFL, Aaron says it all the time. This isn't college. There's no poll. There's no voting. Nobody decides who's there. You either win or you lose. They're 3-0 right now. It doesn't matter how good their defense is. But at some point, that certainly seems like it could come up.
Yeah, and the stats on 3-0 teams and their chance to make the playoffs is it's hugely in favor of the Bills right now. So they have I think there's enough time in this year to get that right. I do think we've seen enough performances against really pretty good teams of this Bills defense to think that they can get it right. And we know that the players on this team are good enough to do that. So I think they've got some time to right the ship on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not super worried yet. Like I said, it's a really weird 3-game sample on the defensive side of the ball, having missed Milano and Edmonds for a game and a half. And now they come back, made a few flash plays from Milano, but still not fully healthy. I think the line, these guys are getting to know each other. They're playing with each other for the first 3 games here too. You've seen some flashes, some nice things for especially Mario Addison. I like the way he's played. So I think some of the stuff's going to take a little bit of time, and then we're going to get Josh Norman back here at some point. You'd hope. So I think let's take a look here.
Possibly this week.
Yeah, mid-October. I think whoever asked that question, come back mid-October, and if it's still looking kind of like this, I don't know. But we don't need, if the offense continues at the pace that they've played, this doesn't need to be a top 5 defense, right? If we fall back to being a top 10, top 15 defense, you can win a lot of games as long as the offense continues to play like this. The problem has been for the Bills, the defense has had to carry them. And now we've seen 2 games in a row where the offense had to carry this team, and kind of long overdue. But I think building up some of that confidence in the offense is not a bad thing either.
Yeah, and there's a couple different things in some of the games going on around there today. The Titans squeaked out a close win. The Raiders got embarrassed by the Patriots, just got their pants pulled down. So, feeling a little bit different about that game coming in next week with the Raiders looking so terrible.
It's a week-to-week league, man.
Yeah, it's all in matchups. Aaron TK here asking, is Josh Norman eligible to return next week? Yes, that's a right word. Technically on Monday, he is eligible to return. If he practices
this last week, that looked good.
If he practices, they have 21 days to activate him from the first day of practice. They don't have to practice him at all year. They could wait and start week 13, and then they'd have 21 days from there. So the 21 days starts the first day of practices. Like Aaron said, with seeing him on the bike last week and hearing it was ramping up, I am expecting him to practice. I don't know if that means that he plays the first week he practices. I could easily see them giving him a week of practice, a break, and then a second week of practice. But I do expect him to be back here. I'm going to say by week 5. I expect to see Josh Norman.
Here's a good one because Pat in place says, how many Pagula bucks? I always just like saying Pagula bucks because you say it. Did Daboll earn today? 0. I don't think there's any Pagula bucks left for Brian Daboll. If there's no amount of money. there's no amount of money that's going to prevent him from taking a head coaching job. It's what all these coaches in the world want. And then when they have the opportunity, they're going to go take it, and their agent's going to take it for them. So
does anyone see what Josh Allen's passing numbers have been? Has everyone see all the crow that all these other national writers and everyone have been eating? Who do you think is going to get credit for that? When Brian Daboll's agent goes and talks to Woody Johnson with the Jets, what do you think he's going to show him? So, no, like people, our friend Nate Geary put out a tweet saying, hey, we need to throw him the Josh McDaniels, Greg Roman deal. That's not what people are going to be looking for. Now, our one hope is that I do think Eric Bieniemy, Greg Roman, and maybe one or two other guys might be ahead of Daboll. I think Daboll is the third, fourth, fifth best coaching candidate out there, not going into college. If one of those guys wants to come forward that fits, I don't know. There's an obvious one. So I don't think he's the number one. I think Eric Bieniemy's number one. I think Greg Roman's number two. I think Daboll's the third best head coaching candidate. Our best chance is that we don't see a lot of turnover. There isn't a job, and then there's some weird decision, and that Daboll's then the number one guy the next year. But I will say this, and I've unequivocally said it from the beginning: Brian Daboll is not turning down a head coaching job offer, full stop. It doesn't matter. Every new head coach makes $5, $6, $7, $8 million a year. He's going to get paid a ton of money. You're not going to ask the Pagulas to pay him $12 million a year and more than McDermott to stay as the coordinator. If he gets offered a head coaching job, he's taking it, full stop.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by there's no bucks left. If there's an offer on the table, doesn't matter the team. Nope. These guys get very limited opportunities. Look at Leslie Frazier. He's a great coach. He had a very small window to be a head coach in this league, and he hasn't had a chance to get back in. You see some retreads where they get multiple opportunities, but that doesn't happen very often, and that's the ultimate goal for every single one of these guys. So if Daboll gets the opportunity, hopefully it's not with New York Jets, because I wish him anywhere else.
And so Dusty even saying here, I don't know that Roman or Daboll are going to be successful head coaches because I don't know what makes a successful head coach. There have been so many good coordinators that just never pan out. Really smart offensive minds, really smart defensive minds. The culture building piece of Brian Flores and Sean McDermott, and even some of the things that what Kyle Shanahan's put together. It's not just his play calling on the field. Some of the things of how they build those things, you don't know the exact leadership abilities. I don't know that about Greg Roman, Eric Bieniemy, or Brian Daboll. I think they're the three guys who are going to get that chance because in today's NFL, offense wins.
Yeah, and a lot of the success of a head coach is based on the relationship. This is the problem we've seen in the Bills for years. I did a timeline when they hired Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. I went back of all the coaching hires and the GM hires and the overlap and the bad relationships. A lot of that success that we're seeing right now in Buffalo is the symbiotic relationship between Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. So if you don't have that, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. We've seen that happen before too, where great minds who have had success other places come in and the relationship just isn't there. The guy's not getting the pieces. So a lot goes into a successful head coach, but that doesn't mean you can't predict that guys that are good coordinators are going to get those jobs or line up for those jobs.
Yeah. So today was an awesome day in the chat. Again, you guys are fantastic, Aaron, and I really appreciate all the support. If you enjoy this, please go give us a rating, give us a review, give us a like on whatever you're listening to us on. It really does matter. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell somebody in the store or the grocery line, whatever it is. Tell somebody else about the show. We really, really do appreciate it. Aaron, where can the people find you now that you've returned your way to social media?
Down here, you can find me at Aaron Quinn 716. And it's true to tell people my mail guy stopped by the other day and said, "Go Bills." And I was like, "Hey man, if you like the Bills, listen to Cover One Buffalo podcast." And he pointed out, he's like, "Oh yeah, I love those guys." I was like, "Hey, that's me, man. Me. I'm the guy you love." So shout out to my mailman. If you're listening to this, you're the man. But yeah, no, it does help to tell everyone you can if you really want to help support. That's one of the best ways, and then reviews and stuff.
So for anyone who didn't see the announcement, some new shows are going to be starting up this week. The Hoof podcast is now on Cover One. You guys are going to love Disguise coverage. Really good show. You guys have been listening to Cover One Buffalo. We've got big thank you to Uncle Jumbo's. Big thank you to West Her. Make sure you're checking us out here. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and